The 1920s. The war had ended. The world was scarred. But not America. While Europe began rebuilding from the ruins, America dared to dream, and that dream quickly became reality. The streets exploded with colorful ads. Jazz floated through the radio waves. Men and women danced, drank, and dreamed about the future. This era would come to be known as the Roaring Twenties. People were making money and spending it even faster. Appliances no one had seen before, refrigerators, radios, electric ovens, were finding their way into every home. Department stores were flooded with installment contracts. Buy now, pay later. That was the trend. Banks poured out loans, and people believed stock prices would only go up. The future would only get brighter. America would never stop. At the center of it all stood Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford's moving assembly line turned the automobile into a household item. You took it on a car. It didn't sound like an ad, it sounded like a promise. People lined up for the Model T, then drove it out to the suburbs. Roads expanded. Gas stations, repair shops, motels, cafes, and shopping malls sprang up. America was on the move. Consumption became the engine of growth. At that time, Wall Street wasn't just the heart of finance. Buying stock meant you were investing in the future. Factory workers rushed to brokerage firms after work. Women bought party dresses at boutiques. Men sipped cocktails in three-piece suits. And at night, everyone said, "We will never stop." But that music wouldn't play forever. All that spending was mostly funded by debt. Buy now, pay later gave people freedom, but it also led to uncontrollable debt. At the heart of the frenzy was Wall Street. People talked stocks after their factory shifts. Even housewives and poor farmers bought shares on credit. Stocks will never fall. That's what everyone believed. So what caused the Great Depression? It wasn't just a stock crash. It was a perfect storm of hidden dangers. First, the abuse of credit. Buying stocks on borrowed money, called margin trading, was common. When prices went up, no problem. But when they fell, investors were left with debt, and banks were left with nothing to collect. Then came the installment economy. People bought cars, appliances, even stocks on credit. But those purchases were fueled not by real demand, but by a delusion borrowed from future. Overconsumption, overproduction. Factories kept producing, but buyers dried up. Warehouses overflowed. Prices dropped. Companies bled losses. The banking system was fragile. There was no federal deposit insurance, no safety net. When hundreds of banks collapsed overnight, people lost everything and had no way to recover. Worst of all, the government stood by. They believed the market would fix itself. But as they watched, millions of lives were already falling apart. On September 3rd, 1929, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hit 381.17, the highest in history. People raised glasses. Newspapers declared, America will never fall. But just 1 month later, that confidence was torn apart. October 24th, Black Thursday. People showed up for work as usual, but the market didn't. It wobbled at opening, then spiraled. An 11% crash. 13 million shares traded. A record volume, but no one was buying. Then came the real nightmare. October 28th, Endy. Stocks dropped another 13%. October 29th, Black Tuesday. Another 12% plunge. The trading floor was chaos. Investors screamed in disbelief. In just 5 days, over $30 billion evaporated, more than the entire annual U.S. budget. The crash didn't just affect Wall Street. It tore through every industry. Thousands of companies funded with stock-backed loans collapsed. Without stock value, they couldn't repay debt. From giants to small businesses, one by one, they failed. Factories shut down. Workers never returned. Even giants like GM, Ford, and GE halted production. Hundreds of thousands lost their jobs overnight. Banks fell next. With loans unpaid and stock investments wiped out, depositors rushed to pull their savings. The infamous bank runs. People lined up at dawn. But inside, the vaults were empty. Between 1930 and 1933, over 9,000 banks shut their doors. There were no deposit protections. If a bank failed, your life savings vanished. One man said, "Yesterday I had savings. Today, not even a coin in my hand." Then came the human toll. Farmers were ruined. Crops rotted without buyers. Prices collapsed. Sometimes, burning the harvest was cheaper than selling it. Cities fared no better. As businesses collapsed and factories froze, workers flooded the streets. By 1932, unemployment hit 25%. 1 in 4 Americans had no job. Many more survived on short-term, unstable work. Property values plummeted. Families unable to pay mortgages were evicted. Children quit school. Adults scavenged from garbage cans. Soup kitchens, public heating shelters, and shantytowns emerged. They called these camps Hoovervilles, named mockingly after President Herbert Hoover. Families lived in tents and shacks made of scrap. Children sold newspapers. The jobless lined up for free meals. One headline read, "Children starve, parents lose hope." Even Wall Street elites lost it all, some took their own lives. It wasn't just numbers that collapsed, it was human dignity. This wasn't a 1 or 2 year crisis. The 1930s were a decade of pain, and the Depression didn't stay in America. It swept across borders: Germany, the UK, Japan. The world tilted toward extremism. In the next episode, we'll uncover how America fought back and how it eventually overcame the Great Depression